Well, hi there, and welcome to another United We Stand. We've been speaking to so many interesting friends in ministry, pastors, missionaries, people from all over the world. But it's my privilege this morning to have Paul and Gail Chamberlain with me. They used to look after me when I was a little lad in the youth group. It's been a privilege to know them all of my Christian life. They've served God in pioneering the church in Calvary in King Swinford, which is now a Rise, and the churches have been planted out of that. So they've got a great experience in God. And so I thought this morning would be great just to ask them what God's been doing with them and the churches they're associated with. So good morning to you both, and how are you?
Good morning, Steve. Very well, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Steve. It's an interesting one to say what's been happening, because loads has been happening, hasn't it? Like everywhere, loads has been happening. So, for example, on a Sunday, we go to at least 3 churches nowadays. We go to at least 3
church hoppers,
if not 4 or 5, and then catch up with about 3 more during the week if we're feeling inspired. But the great thing is, Steve, is that the kind of hand of God has been on this season, so that all of our friends really who are in ministry and all of the churches that we know are having a real impact on the connections that they've got, and also on the old connections that they've got. People are kind of logging in and getting involved in stuff. So it's an interesting season.
And a lot of our friends, because we have a lot, Paul will tell you how many in a minute, of friends who don't go to church, who I would class, who are unchurched. I don't know where they stand spiritually with God, but I know they don't go to church. And the impact that this whole thing is having upon them is quite amazing. So in our conversations, Zoom conversations, phone conversations, whatever, it's been absolutely amazing. The actual world, the earth, has been shaken. And I gave a prophetic word at a Rise, literally the last Sunday, and I was shaking from head to toe. I have never had such a powerful prophetic word, and I've been using the gift of prophecy for nigh on 30 years now. It was so strong, and it was an awakening to the church that this is your time. This is your time to speak your story. This is your time to speak the story of Jesus. It is now. This is what the Lord is going to take advantage of this season, and it's up to you to tell your story. And that's what I would say is to people, individuals, tell your story. People out there want to know your story about you meeting Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was quite an interesting moment, wasn't it?
Yes.
In church, to say the least. But what we've been experiencing personally, because when we kind of retired, which is 4 years ago now, we didn't quite know what the Lord wanted us to do. But then a whole raft of unchurched friends started to come together. And we were in a situation where we were having friendship groups locally in King Swinford, and then further apart in Wollaston at a tennis club there, down in Dorset in 2 locations. And I heard J. John talk about what do we do in a time like this? And he said this: pray for your friends, care for your friends, and then eventually share with your friends. And he gave us a few examples, but he said, you know, my wife and I have got 32 friends who don't go to church, but we regularly pray for them. If we have to, we'll care for them. But at some stage, we want to share the gospel with them. And so I went away from this. I did some sums, didn't I? I did some sums. And I worked out I'd got... Sorry. We had got 52 friends who were as yet they were on church, as yet to make a decision for Christ.
And these were people who we would regularly go out for meals with, regularly have a coffee with. So it's just not people that we know, it's people we have a relationship with.
Yeah. And the great thing was that without us prompting or cajoling or trying to manipulate the situation, people would just ask us about our faith and about our own testimony. And it's incredible, really. Yeah. So the 52 is now 56, actually.
Yes, right. One of our friends down in Dorset, couple, hold regular dinner parties. It's that kind of like societal thing. And regularly they will stop the conversation and say, you have got to hear Paul and Gail's story. It's phenomenal. So we then take the next half hour talking about Jesus and what he's done for us. But that is the first unchurched evangelist I have known. And she just opens up the door for us to give our story, which is kind of like diverse, to say the least, isn't it?
So, yeah, and what we do in this season, so if we get something good like, you know, the UK Blessing song or that type of thing, we just push it out there. Yeah. And sometimes you don't get a response. I'm not worried if we don't get a response. Sometimes you do get a response. So one lady, for example, never responded to us, but she decided to do a send to all in a phone, and we got it back. So she did respond.
Yes.
And it's quite amazing. Yeah, quite amazing, mate.
So,
yeah, huge opportunities for us, really. As you say, people are watching and looking. And maybe have not had the courage to actually walk through the door of a church. But, you know, as I said to our people on Sunday morning, the church has left the building. We're no longer a building. We are the church, and we need to communicate the gospel as clearly as we can with every medium we've got. This is our opportunity, James. So obviously you've got a great testimony as well with reference to what happened with Matthew. I don't know whether you want to just share just briefly. I know we don't take too much time up, but obviously your testimony is really powerful. So if you'd like to give us a little bit of that, that would be fantastic.
I think that's been a bit of a tool for us, really, in these last 4 years, is people, when they get to know you, they just ask you about what you did and your family. So we always say we have 3 children. It's just one of us doesn't live with us any longer. And I don't mean live with us any longer. I mean live on this earth with us any longer. Because it was in 1986, our 4-year-old son died with leukemia, and we travelled a journey with him for 3 years of chemo and radiotherapy, and planted Calvary Church during that season. And he was with us for the first 11 months of the church, and then sadly he died. But just because, and I can say this because I've travelled the journey, just because a person dies, their story doesn't end there. And his story has carried on for these last 34 years. And it will carry on as long as I have breath. And we're able to share probably one of the most traumatic times of our life that we ever had. And that we can live again afterwards. And I think that was part of it, wasn't it, Paul? You cannot choose the circumstances that fall upon you, 9 times out of 10. But you have total choice how you're going to react to them. And we chose to make the most of Matthew's 4 years that he had, and continue to tell his story and tell how the Lord has just brought us through it, brought us through the most traumatic, one of the most traumatic experiences a parent could ever go through.
I think it was like perhaps the saddest time in our lives. And at the time we were only in our early 30s, so we were very young, really. And but the principle was that we'd been Christians since, well, I was a Christian from an early age. Gail had a tremendous story of salvation when she was 15, of how the Lord came to her. But I was a kid in church, you know, so I believed the stuff all the way through. And now was a testing time for us, and that whole season was a challenge. But I think the end of the bottom line to it all is, saving a bit of time, is that we evidenced the faithfulness of God through it all. Yeah. And that's the key thing in everything, even in this season of COVID and all of that. You will, in your own life, people will evidence the faithfulness of God, and they'll say, well, the Lord was with me in this. The Lord was with me in this. And we had instance after instance after instance, all the way through a traumatic 2 or 3 year period. And then following that, the years that followed were challenging years, weren't easy, obviously. But the great thing was, God had promised to be faithful, and we were proving it, and we prove it now. And in fact, it's next year, it'll be 35 years.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Since we lost him, you know, so it's, and that's great. I've heard people of a senior age before take these type of things about the faithfulness of God over many years. And you'll have old folks in the church who'll say, oh, God's been faithful, you know, and they're right. Yeah. I've just got to agree with them.
And I think God opened up a door 14 years ago, whereby I was asked to write Matthew's story in book form. I did, and you know, it took me a time. Well, it didn't take that long. It took about 6 months to write it. It was published. But what's happening now, Steve, is that I'm using that as a tool for evangelism.
Yeah.
So when people ask about our family, I'll say, and then they start to ask a few questions, and I just say, well, if you want it in detail, you know, get the book. And I've got to say, Amazon have done us a tremendous deal.
Yeah, it's called.
They recycling the books for us, and it's going worldwide.
Brilliant.
So,
I was gonna mention that, so we can get your book off Amazon, can't we? What's it called, Gail? What's the book called?
Harvest from Heartache.
Gail Chamberlain.
Gail Chamberlain. But they used copies. But I'm not bothered about that.
No.
Getting the story out. And so, you know, I may have a conversation with somebody, you know, when we're having a drink, a coffee or a meal, or in a pub for a drink, having a conversation, and then I can just tell them that, and they say, can I have your email address? Give them their email address. And then several months later, they'll email me to say, well, I've read your book. Do you mind having a chat with me online? Yeah. So it's kind of like,
that's good.
Amazing.
Really good.
It's unique. It's a unique ministry, really.
Really good. And I was just thinking there, on a personal level, I need to have a chat with you off this. I did a funeral for a 7-year-old little boy just before we closed down, lockdown. And I'd love you to speak to the lady. She's a lovely girl. And I know that she'd be really comforted by having a chat with you. So we'll try and make that happen. She only lives in Pensnett, so it's a great opportunity again. Yeah. Yeah, but God's been gracious to us all, hasn't he? You know, you talk about the years flying by. It doesn't seem like 2 minutes since we were at youth camp, and I interviewed
Peter. I could tell some stories.
You could tell, you could tell a lot of, you could tell a lot of stories. Yeah, I know you could. So, so Peter Butt apparently has written the book. He said he was going to send me a copy, but he hasn't yet. But he's done the Wallstead years, which is
wow.
Fantastic.
It should be an interesting read, yeah. So, we'll get a copy. I'll let you know what it's about. But I wrote a couple of pages in just terms of testimony, how God had kind of those times. You know, I thank God for those times with you, because it was at that time I got saved. I got filled with the Holy Spirit. God called me to the ministry. You know, so exciting days, really. And
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. It's good. Actually, Steve, it's just an encouragement to anybody who runs a children's or a youth ministry.
Yes.
That you don't know. You know, we worked out from that particular youth ministry, 6 people are in full-time service for the Lord and ministers for the Lord. That's apart from everybody else who's a minister of the Lord everywhere.
Yeah, one lady went to Afghanistan.
Yes.
To work out there.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Undercover, of course.
Yeah.
Undercover, of course. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's good what God's done, and you know, obviously the Calvary thing is now the Arise thing, and you've got some stuff with the gallery and Springs as well, which is great. You know, I just want to encourage all the ministers and pastors out there. You know, be big with your vision and let your people go as well. I think one of the things I'm learning, and you'll say, is, you know, don't worry about how many people you can seat. So how many people can you sow? That's what we need to understand. You know, how many people can we give away? You know, and see what God will do in them, because it's not about how many people we get to our church doors on a Sunday, but how many people we're influencing across the whole of the community and beyond. So, yeah, it's been lovely to speak to you both this morning. Paul, would you pray us, lead us to the Lord before we go? Just pray over our lives and our influence over our friends and family, that God had really saved many people in this season. Amen.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Lord, thank you that across the Black Country and across the UK, but more specifically, we're very precious about Sedgley, Dudley, Gornal, Womburn and all those kind of places, Lord, that you would be glorified at this time. May your word do its own work in people's lives, I pray. Thank you for the witness that this great church in Sedgley and Steve and the team are all about. May that just flourish and grow. And Lord, may your kingdom be extended at this time. Lord, we don't have all the answers at all, but our faith and our trust is in our faithful God. Blessed be your lovely name. Thank you for this day, Lord. Bless each and every one who hears this now, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you, and keep on enjoying the sunshine. I know you love the sun as well as I do, Gail, so it'll be sunny the next couple of days, so please enjoy. Bless you both. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bless you.
Bye.
Thanks, Steve. Bye.